Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We've received some official news on the Moria Raid. We're going to be going over a few things within that article. I'm not going to read the whole thing off the website. I will link it in the description below if you do want to go and have a read of that at your own leisure. All you really need to know to get started on the raids, you're going to have to make sure that you're part of a guild and also be at level 30 to be able to take part in that first chapter. Now, we don't have an official start date for the raid as yet. I'll bring you that information as soon as the devs confirm that. But we are expecting that first chapter to drop sometime within July. Now, we aren't going to be getting all the chapters at once. So once that first chapter does drop, we'll have a good amount of time to get our hands on it, work out what teams are going to work the best to get the most amount of points out of that chapter before the next one drops. Now, to get that raid started, what you will need to be doing is completing your daily activities, because that is how you're going to get those raid keys that's going to allow your guild to unlock that raid. So you're going to want to make sure that you're part of a guild that is active. You want to have that full complement of 36 players as much as possible so that everyone is contributing on a daily basis to getting those keys so you can do those raids more often. If you are one of those players that does like to join guilds and just kind of leech off the rewards of everybody else's efforts, I will let you know now, you're probably going to be removed from plenty of guilds because they want active players. Now, once the raid does start, you're going to have a limited number of attempts on each chapter of the raid. Once you have used a particular team, that team will be exhausted. You cannot use them again for that chapter to try and post more scores. What you can do, however, if you are not happy with the score that you posted, just say that RNG really wasn't on your side for that particular phase of the raid. You can opt to do that again, so you can put your team in again, discard the previous score, and try and get a better score to post for the guild. Now, one thing that I do like about this particular style that they're bringing in for this game is it's not like Galaxy of Heroes where they'll start, say, a tier 7 raid. Everyone has to do the same difficulty. If your teams aren't quite up to scratch, you can opt to do a lower tier, which will limit your score. And obviously, the higher the tier, the more bonus points that you're going to get as a multiplier for doing those more difficult levels. Now, every player in the guild will have 24 hours in which to post a score. So it's not going to be like when they introduced the Rancor raid in Galaxy of Heroes and eventually got to the point where if you didn't log on as soon as that raid started, you were never going to get the maximum amount of points because it was going to be over within 10 minutes. And that eventually led to the whole thing just being auto-played, so everyone got the maximum rewards, which really made the whole thing pointless in the first place. This one is going to allow us to be playing for a long time to come, trying to better our scores every single time. And then as you get your squads up to a higher level, or some new characters come into the game, they're going to be more effective for a particular phase of the raid. Then you're going to be able to try those higher tiers and get more points. The reason that you're really going to want to try and get as many points as possible is because there are two types of rewards. The first one is an individual reward, which is based on the ranking within your guild of how many points you were able to get within your runs through that chapter of the raid. The second reward that you're going to get is based on how far the guild gets through that raid. Now, as for rewards, we know that there's going to be the common things like gold and character XP, stuff like that, but there will also be an exclusive character for this raid that you'll be able to get shards for and eventually collect up to that 7 stars. They haven't announced as yet who that will be. I've got a sneaky feeling it might be Gimli, but I could be completely wrong. That's just my speculation at this point. But you'll also be collecting some coins that are exclusive to the raid itself as the rewards, which will be able to be spent in a raid exclusive store. So the better that you do individually and as a guild, you're going to be able to unlock those features a lot faster. Now you're probably wondering, what do we actually have to do in this raid? Now they have stated that every chapter will have a different objective. So some could just be defeating an endless horde of orcs. Some could be putting damage on a particular boss. Some could just be a time thing on how long you last within that phase before you lose. That will make it a real battle of survival. There could be so many different things that they bring in throughout the raid, whether it's the Moria Raid or something that they might bring in the future. But we do have a screenshot here for Chapter 1. Obviously these details could change, but it's talking here about gaining 5 points for every % of health lost by an enemy orc. Also gaining 500 points for every orc enemy defeated. So by that maths, you should be getting 1,000 points just by defeating an orc. So at least that's my maths on that one anyway. Also, whenever 2 or more orcs are defeated in a single turn, you'll get a bonus 1,000 points for every orc defeated in this way. And then the last thing they've got there is gain 4,000 points for every enemy orc defeated by an enemy orc bomber. Now I would say for that one there's going to be an orc there that will have like a timer on him. If you defeat him before he can throw that bomb at you, then that would affect whatever orcs are still standing on the battlefield. Now, as you can see there, it does show you what enemies could be on the battlefield there. It also says what units are allowed. Now, I don't think that's a restriction on what you're allowed to choose. I'm pretty sure that's just going to be a list that might look different for everybody based on what characters you have left. Because as it stated before, once you've banked those points from one of your runs through the raid, you can't use those characters again to do a second run, so you've got to choose a different team. Whatever you do, don't freak out and start farming those 5 characters, because I don't think that's what's going to be needed. What I do think you are going to need is, say, 3 really good teams that you're going to be able to get a lot of damage out of. So what you may have already got in your kit is your arena team that you've probably been building up since the start of the game. For all of you guys that have someone like Gaza in the team that you've ranked all the way up to 7 stars, you've got him to gear 8. He is the best character that you have. He could be very, very good for this particular raid. And the reason is you want to be able to do that AoE damage. So when you pair him up with his Mordor team, they are very, very capable of doing a lot of damage very, very quickly. There's a few AoE guys in there, and if you do have that bomber in the team, you want to be able to target him with someone like Shagrat or even the Slasher. That way they can get rid of him very, very quickly and get you those maximum amount of points when that bomb blows up and hopefully takes out a whole heap of guys all at once. For everyone that has started investing in that Rivendell team, if you do have Elrond and his team there, they are going to be very good because they are very self-sufficient. They can keep healing, they can keep reviving, they can stay in the fight for a very long time. What this is going to mean is you're going to be able to spend longer accumulating more points than some of those other teams that are going to start falling apart once they lose 1 or 2 characters. This is also going to be the same situation if you do have an Isengard team that you have been building up. Because they've got all of that passive healing that they do every time they put a Bane on the opposition, you're going to have a lot of fun being able to target those guys with whatever damage you can possibly do to them, and they're just going to be able to stay in the fight for that little bit longer. Other teams you might be able to use is someone like the Rangers. They're a little bit more self-sufficient. If you don't have Elrond, you can substitute Halbarad in there as the leader and put together a pretty decent team for the Rangers, because we do have some of those marquee characters that you've probably already got in your kit there. Another one that a lot of people have been working on is that Road to Rivendell team, trying to get that Gardener's Journey all completed. I know that's still a little bit buggy very hard to get that team up and running. But for the ones that have invested in there, I've seen a lot of full gear 8 teams that are very hard to get around, even with that Elrond team. And the other thing that we do know when it comes to raids is not everything has to be a full synergized team. There can be all kinds of mismatched type characters that you can throw together that for some reason just seem to work in a particular scenario. If you've got any ideas of what you might be able to do, put that in the comments, because we might be able to have a look at some of those kits and see if those characters could stack up in a raid. But once we do get our hands on this raid, we'll have a much better idea of what's in front of us, what works, what doesn't, what characters you might want to start to farm. But until that time, it's all really just speculation, because we don't know 100% the mechanics that are going to happen in that raid battle. So what I would advise that you do, the characters that you're already working on, make sure you keep working towards that level 60. Keep promoting them, keep getting that gear level up. You get up to gear 8, you're going to be much stronger, you're going to do more damage, you're going to be able to last longer in those raids, and those teams are going to be far more effective for you than start going through random things and start panicking saying, well, what if I worked on the goblins, or what if I started working on Bolg's team, or what if I started doing this or that or something else. You're just going to be putting all of these resources into random characters that you may not even be able to use, or not have to use for a very long time for some other purpose. But it's great that we are getting some more content. The game's feeling a little bit stale because we haven't really been able to do anything with these characters that we've been working on. So it's great that we're going to finally get to do something, especially as a guild. But if we do get any more specific information, I'll make sure I bring that to you guys, along with any tips that I can think of to help you prepare for the raids. But until then, guys, that's it for this one. Don't forget, like and sub, you know the deal. We got plenty more Heroes of Middle-earth coming your way. Don't miss out, and we'll catch you in the next one.